Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all safe and sound. My name is Benjamin Silverstone, and I am the equity analyst covering the exciting Icelandic-based and Copenhagen-listed company Össur here at ABG. Today, we have the pleasure, for the first time ever, of having Össur participate in our Introduce Investor Day. So, without any further ado, I would like to give over the word to Össur's CFO, Sveinn Sölvason, who will so kindly to be here today and who will be presenting the company. Thank you so much, Sveinn, for being here today, and the word's all yours.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and thanks to ABG for hosting us, and thanks to all of you on the line for your interest in Össur. I will take the next 15 plus minutes to go through our, let's say, an overview presentation of Össur, and then we can go into Q&A. So if we can please switch to the first slide. So Össur is a mid-sized global healthcare company operating in two sub-segments of the broader orthopedic market, or prosthetics and bracing and support, and I'll explain that on the next slide. The most of our business is in the, let's say, the well-funded, mature healthcare markets, meaning Canada, US, UK, France, Benelux, Germany, Scandinavian countries. This is where we generate 90% of our business. We are a technology company. We invest 5% of our sales in R&D every year. We have around 1,700 patents that relate to how medical devices are fitted to the external part of the body. We don't have anything that is invasive. We purely manufacture products that are, let's say, placed on the external part of the body. Since the company was listed in 1999, we have on average grown our sales 20% through a combination of external growth and organic growth for every year. And currently our EBITDA margin is around 22% for our last full financial year. As Benjamin mentioned, we're listed in Copenhagen, and our main shareholder is the William Demant Invest Foundation. So if we go to the next slide, please, to dive a little bit into more details with these two markets that we operate in, prosthetics and bracing and support. What you have here on the left-hand side of the picture is a description of the prosthetic side, which is over half of our sales. What we have, our product the products that we bring to market in this segments are basically all the components that are needed to build a prosthetic leg, and we segment these products by, on the one hand side, mechanical products, and then we have our bionic products. The mechanical products are today the majority of the business, while the bionic products are around little over 20% of our sales in prosthetics today. The bionics have some sort of sensor technology, some sort of artificial intelligence algorithms that learn how the user walks and adapts to each and every individual's walking style, which ultimately leads to a higher quality of life for the amputee. While the mechanical products are mechanical, there's no sensors or no electronics or anything like that, and this remains the bulk of our business still in prosthetics, but there is an increasing trend towards bionics. So that's the prosthetic side of the business. The bracing and support side is a little less than half of our sales. Here we have products that cover a fairly wide range of indications, everything from small or minor injuries to or minor ligament pain to, let's say, more complex solutions like post-operative bracing or chronic solutions like osteoarthritis. And also, like in prosthetics, in bracing and support, we have a complete product range, if you will, or a one-stop shop for bracing solutions. Now, what is also important to mention here is that over 90% of the products that we sell are ultimately reimbursed by some sort of reimbursement system, whether government or private. What is not reimbursed is typically what we sell in markets where there is not a well-established reimbursement systems, or in most of our sales in emerging markets are so-called private pay sales, where there is still no reimbursement. If we go to the next slide, please, on the geographic setup. We are also, as Benjamin mentioned, we're headquartered in Iceland. The company was established here in 1971, so we turn 50 next year. Here in Iceland, we have R&D for prosthetics and some manufacturing of the, let's say, low volume, high tech prosthesis. As I mentioned in the beginning, our markets are the main healthcare markets of the world. We have the US is our single biggest market. And as I mentioned earlier, the other 90% of our sales is in the mature, well-established Western world healthcare markets, while 10% of our sales is originated in emerging markets. In addition to manufacturing in Iceland, we also manufacture in Mexico and have some sourcing of manufacturing also from China. If we move on to the next slide, please, and look at the two markets that we compete in a little bit more detail. Starting with prosthetics, which we estimate to be a $1.3 to $1.4 billion market, where Össur has a market share of around 22 to 23% as the second largest player in this market, where Otto Bock, a German family-owned company, is the largest company market share-wise in prosthetics with around 35% share. Then the remainder of the field here are smaller companies that have a presence in fewer markets. And in most markets globally, you have Össur and Otto Bock as the leading players. We estimate the market growth here to be around 3 to 5%. Now, what drives growth in prosthetics is let's say at least where we generate 90% of our sales, we are servicing an amputee population that is rather stable in size. But what drives the value growth in the industry is that proportionately more and more of these amputees are getting access to better technology prosthesis like the bionics we talked about earlier, and I'll explain that in more detail on a later slide. Now, we go to market in prosthetics through orthopedic and prosthetic clinics. This is a fairly well-defined customer group. Our main, let's say, point of sale is the prosthetist, which is the specialist that is servicing the amputee. However, we also need to market our solutions to the payers and increasingly also to the end user, who is more and more influential in terms of deciding what type of prosthesis they prefer. So these were the highlights on the prosthetic market. For bracing and support, this is a bigger market, $2.7 to $3 billion. Our market share is we are among a group of 5 to 6 other companies that are sort of second in size to DJO Global, which is the biggest player in the bracing industry with about 20% global market share. What drives growth in bracing and support is a little bit different in prosthetics. The growth drivers here are these sort of classic healthcare growth drivers. The average user of a bracing product is typically an elderly person. So as we grow older, proportionately in the Western world, all else equal, there's more demand for bracing. Also, lifestyle-related topics such as increasing demand for active lifestyles. Also, obesity-related trends that leads to pressure on joints, that leads to demand for arthritis solutions, etc. So the volume, this is more a volume-driven market, volume growth-driven market. For some of the bracing products categories that are more simple in nature, we have some price erosion year over year to the tune of 1 to 2%. Now, the channel structure here, or go-to-market strategy, is again 2 O&P clinics, which are our core customers. These O&P clinics, they typically do both bracing and prosthetics. That is their core business. But on the bracing and support side, we also call on hospitals and orthopedic clinics in the US. So these few slides that I've gone through, this concludes, let's say, the descriptive part. If we look more forward, if you can go to the next slide, please. Our main themes when it comes to how we run the business, we are innovation, growth, and efficiency. If we go to the next slide, please. On the innovation side, which has always been at the core when it comes to how we grow the business and how we think about maturing and developing the business, is this technology, so-called technology trade-up. And this is a simple slide that explains the mechanics. If you look at the lower left side of the picture here, the wooden leg, this used to be the standard of care if you go back 30 years, and is actually in some markets still what is available to amputees. Now the market today is mainly around mechanical solutions. This is our bread and butter business today. What we have here an example of a mechanical foot and sort of a typical price point where we sell to O&P clinics. Now, if you move to the upper right corner here, you see the bionics, some examples of the bionics, and what you also notice is that the price point is totally different. And the short story here is that the health economics around paying for bionics are solid, and this is our argument towards the payers, that for those individuals who use good prosthetic solutions, when you see someone using these products, they will walk like the rest of us that have two normal legs, meaning that they are able to have a more active lifestyle. They're less likely to have problems on the sound side, which come from using poor quality prosthesis, and they're much less likely to fall, which is one of the biggest cost items for the healthcare systems when amputees fall and injure themselves. So if you add all these things up, it is a good investment for the system to pay for bionics. And bionics are reimbursed in all of our major markets. But those who are eligible for bionics, that the criteria differs quite a bit between the different geographies. So our objective here is to continue to promote these health economics and fight for the adoption of bionics for the benefit of the user and the system as a whole. So this is a good example of our philosophy when it comes to innovation. We are creating medical devices that are good for the user and are efficient for those that ultimately pay for those solutions as well. And in the upper right corner here, you have a reference to what are our mind-controlled prosthetics. This is technology that we have been working on for some years and have demonstrated that this works, where in the sense that the amputee is sort of uses implanted sensors. And I mentioned in the beginning, we don't have any invasive products. This is the only exception, but it's only at a very, very early stage, and these sensors are still going through FDA testing. But the next level of technology trade-up beyond the bionic solutions is when we have amputees using or controlling their prosthesis more through intuitive control or mind control. But again, this is technology where we expect the commercialization is still some years out there. But it's just to signal that there's still plenty of room to innovate and bring better technology to the existing amputees. If we go to the next slide, please, when it comes to other important growth themes, I want to highlight our geographic expansion strategy. Emerging markets, as I mentioned in the beginning, is about 10% of our sales. However, when it comes to the global amputee population, We estimate that there are around 750,000 amputees that come into the amputee population every year, of which over 500,000 are in emerging markets where we generate 10% of our sales today. So we have over the last few years been sort of establishing a presence in new markets, and we have aggressive plans of establishing our business in new markets over the next in the short to medium term, and this is one of our key growth drivers. Also, I want to highlight here acquisitions, which Össur has always been active on the acquisition front, where we have strived to find or to complete on acquisitions that strengthen our position in the market and our ability to execute our strategy. We have during the recent years been focused on acquiring clinics that are at the front end of our value chain, which positions us to further facilitate the technology trade-up and have the discussion with the payers around the health economics of using bionics. So acquisitions will continue to be a key growth theme for us going forward. And now, since we are running out of time, just to say a few words around financials. Here you have the 3 last years that we have reported our numbers, and what you see here is on the growth side a fairly stable mid-single-digit organic growth rate at the upper end of what we estimate the market growth rate to be, and in addition some sort of another on average 5 percentage points from growth from acquisitions. Our operating profit has been increasing step by step, where we expect going forward to generate a gradual improvement in our underlying margins, which are driven by product mix and scalability and efficiency initiatives. Ultimately, the business is a cash generative business, and we use this cash flow to make strategic acquisitions in addition to paying dividends and share buybacks. Obviously, through COVID, our financial performance has been impacted. We have, in our latest announcements, we have described how we are gradually getting back on track. And when we reported Q3, now we also commented that we see sales are largely on par with prior year as at current trading, at least in October. So I think, Benjamin, I think we're almost at the 20-minute mark here. So I think I'll pause here and we can move over to questions.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation, Sveinn. To start off the Q&A section of this presentation, take into consideration that there might be a few investors on this call who are new to the case or haven't learned a lot about the case so far. Could you please elaborate a little bit on the parameters that you mentioned a bit about before, which allows you to grow significantly above the market growth, which is, estimated around 3 to 5%. So you do mention, your acquisition strategy, tech trade-off things, but could you perhaps just elaborate a little bit on what makes Össur stand out in regards to growing above market? Thank you.
Our let's say our prosthetics division has been the main growth driver in the business. If we look over the last 5 years, we've been growing in prosthetics between 6 and 8% in a market which we estimate to be growing 3 to 5. And there are 2 main reasons for this. One is our bionics strategy, where we have had a steady pipeline of bionic innovation, both bionic hands and knees and ankles. So this, if we go back to 2012, 13, bionics as a percentage of sales was something around 11-12%. It is today above 20%. So we see our bionics, which are growing sort of our double digit, increasingly becoming a bigger share of the pie. So this is one important element. The other theme is what I touched on briefly, the emerging markets strategy. Ottobock is the leader in emerging markets, our main competitor. And we are gradually building a stronger presence in these markets, and this has been also a major contributor to our above average growth rate if we look at the last 2 years. So I would highlight these two elements. I also maybe just to mention as such, I mean, if you look at the dynamics in the prosthetics industry where we have Össur and Ottobock, where I believe we have the advantage of scale around distribution, manufacturing, and also an ability to bring to our customers other things than selling them good prosthetic components. We have been sort of strengthening our service offering, including reimbursement support, and including also initiatives to help them, let's say, take out some of the traditional manufacturing activities that they perform on the clinical side and outsource them to us and a host of other similar solutions. So I think some of the industry dynamics favor the larger companies in the industry today.
Thank you very much, Sveinn.
Sure.
To also briefly touch upon what you mentioned in regards to your last quarter, and you spoke about how you're returning to a more normal level of profitability, which you had last year as well. As it did become evident during the last quarter that you now are sort of getting back to this profitability level and EBITDA margin levels, could you perhaps speak a little about how you're seeing this going right now? If there's been any changes or if it's still going on the right track?
Yeah, so I think I'll sort of stick to the line of communication around Q3, where our message was that we were on the sales side, on average, continuing to see sort of a positive, let's say, trajectory from the let's call it the bottom in March, April during the first wave. So our sales are gradually getting back on track. And you're right also on let's say the profitability in Q3 was also very sort of much in line with prior year, so to say. And that is also what our communication has been, that we don't see COVID fundamentally impacting the profitability in the business, nor the demand side on a more or medium longer term basis, because the need for our products is still there. The amputee population is still there, and we look at ourselves as being so we are servicing this amputee population that continuously needs upgrades to their prosthesis and repairs and things like that. And it's also worth mentioning that most of our sales every year are sales that are ultimately going to existing amputees that have some sort of solution already. Probably in the Western world, it's probably 70 to 80% of the business with our customers, and therefore our business is sort of, if you call it, servicing existing amputees.
Thank you. So I think that gives a good understanding of the underlying business fundamentals here. Yep. A quick question, just in regards to the patients. As you mentioned, the long-term outlook really still looks solid. I mean, COVID-19 does not seem to have an impact on the long-term outlook. Could you just briefly walk us through the timeline of a patient from when they get an amputation to when they start actually using your products, and then this recurring business, as you mentioned?
Yes, exactly. So just for education, the reasons for amputations are in the Western world, it is where we generate most of our business. We estimate that 70% is related to, let's say, lifestyle-related issues that lead to diabetes, that lead to vascular complications in the lower part of the body that ultimately leads to amputation. That is 70% of all amputations. Then there's accidents, cancer, birth defects, that sort of provide the balance. Now, the way it works when an individual is amputated, this is done in a hospital setting by an orthopedic surgeon, and the patient will need, depending on the severity and the underlying condition of the patient, they will need from weeks up to months to recover and become ambulatory. Then these individuals are referred to an O&P clinic, which is our customer, where they are received by a prosthetist who will be their advisor and become often very connected to these individuals, because it is a very traumatic incident to lose a limb, and these prosthetists become very connected to the amputee and will work with them for a big part of their lives, and they will help and advise on selecting products, on advising, let's say, how to tackle reimbursement, and will often also sort of help the user just learn how to use the prosthetic. And then this individual will come back one to two times per year or more for some parts of the prosthesis need an upgrade once or twice a year, while, for example, maybe the more or the bigger components like the knee joint or the ankle joint are maybe replaced on a 2 to 4 year cycle, also depending on reimbursement systems. So this is broadly how it works. And again, it is a bit different market by market, because the underlying reimbursement system is very different. Like I said earlier, those that are eligible for bionics, for example, is just different in the US than it is in Germany. In Germany, most people get it. It's just the prosthetist who simply, if it is his view that this individual will have a higher quality life using a bionic, then the system will pay. While in the US, which is just another example, there it is only those that are considered active individuals, those that can vary the speed of their walking, and are typically the younger amputees. They will be eligible for. However, those that are elderly and less active, they will not be eligible for reimbursement of bionics. So this is just sort of a big picture how it works.
Thank you very much, Sveinn. Due to your time, we will unfortunately have to finish the presentation here.
Sure.
But I would like to thank you very much for taking your time to be here today. It was a pleasure. And thank you to everybody who participated on the call today. If you'd like to know more about this interesting company, I would like to highlight that we have an in-depth analysis of the company publicly available on the introduce.se platform, which was published on the 25th of October. So thank you so much for today, everybody, and I hope you all have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.